Something that I never talk about is the fact that I'm not a mother. I do make up children. I have made up children in the past. I kind of always thought, oh, at some point it's going to happen. Maybe I should have had a baby with my fiance and then split up with him.
What conversations are you having as a child-free woman that I'm not having?
Something that I never talk about, and something that most women that I know very rarely talk about, is the fact that I'm not a mother, that I've never had children. And it's very challenging and very unnerving sometimes to occupy a space as a woman who isn't a mum in a world that is mother-centric, that is all about woman equals mother. Those two things go together. And when you are not a mother and you're navigating such a world, particularly when you come to the mid of life and you come to that kind of change of life, it can be very isolating, and you have to come to terms with the fact you're not going to have children. It could be that you've always known you never wanted to have children, but there's always that wonder, there's that, is this going to change? Am I going to change? Is this how I really feel? We second guess ourselves all the time. So I wanted to create a space that was for women who aren't mums exclusively to come together as a group and to work through the same program that I use with the women that I work with, all women, the same framework that I use, which is my joyful framework. And that's an 8-week program. And I wanted to do that with women who aren't mums exclusively and explore that together. And I've been on a bit of a journey speaking to many women about their experiences of not being a mum and how they show up or don't show up in the world as that, and the challenges that we face as women who aren't mums.
What sparks in my head is that when I meet somebody who hasn't had a child or got a child, you instantly want to say, how come you haven't had a kid? Right? It goes on my head, and I think, what right have I got to be asking or even thinking that? Because it's actually none of my business. But I'm intrigued to understand what it is that made them have a choice, whether or not it was a choice or wasn't a choice. And it's such a personal conversation to be having. So I think the fact that you're highlighting this is so important. You're providing a space for women who don't have children, for them to be a part of a community that allows them to share their experiences and their challenges in that, and also coming up against someone like me when you meet someone, because instantly they're thinking, well, I bet you she's thinking, why haven't I had a kid?
You are, as a woman, always steeling yourself for that question, because it always comes up, especially in spaces that are spaces with women. That's generally where the conversation goes, and it's almost a default. It's almost like an expectation. I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with one of my women, and she was like, I didn't realise how much this affected me, but she was in an online community. She's a business owner, and she's in a mastermind with loads of other women who are businesses, and they sat having their Zoom, and the first question was, oh, how's everyone juggling childcare over the summer? And it's like, this is a business space. Why is that the first thing? But the assumption that that is your story, that is your experience, that is your trajectory. It's like, it's such a ingrained thing. Motherhood and womanhood are lumped together. We are othered so many times in, feeling like you don't fit into the mold. And we all feel like that, right? Everybody feels like that in some way. We all feel like we don't fit in, whether that comes from school not being with the cool kids, or if it comes from when you start a new workplace, everybody's in a little clique and you want to fit in. We are social beings and we want to fit in. We don't want to be outside the cave and outside the community, because that's a dangerous place to be. So it's only when you start talking about it that you're like, oh, there are loads of other people that feel like this as well. And this is just happening for everybody in isolation.
If you are enjoying this episode and you don't want to miss another episode, why not join the community? All you need to do is hit the follow button, or if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. What do you think the main challenges are as a midlife woman or woman nearing midlife? You haven't had a child. What are those challenges do you feel that people are facing?
The questions that you get asked, those are challenges. Other people's expectations, the way that other people see you. Aging is a very big one. And that's something that I've talked about a lot in the people that I've been speaking to and in my programs is, well, who's going to look after you when you get old? As if the expectation is, oh, well, your children are going to mop up all of the stuff that you can no longer do. Like the tables are going to turn and suddenly your children are there to look after you. But the reality is not that. I mean, if you're lucky to have children who want to hang around you when you're adults, you've obviously done a good job raising them. But firstly, there are a lot of children who don't want to be around their parents, and there's a lot of parents that don't have their children around them, and you only have to go into any care home and see it's peppered with old people who have not been visited by their children in a very long time.
How do you think somebody at a party, if they want to know something about somebody, and I've made the mistake as well. Oh gosh, I remember. Now I'm thinking back. God, I remember. I said to someone, "Oh my God, you've just reminded me." I went to a meeting, and I said, "So have you?" Because these younger guys were having kids, and I was like, "So have you had kids yet?" And he literally just went bright red, and everyone just stopped and went, "No, not yet." And it was like, I thought, why did I say that? Why did I say that?
Small talk conversation,
Yes.
but it's also a very autonomic conversation, and that's one of the things that I want to disrupt.
Yeah.
Is that part of the small talk, part of the networking is like, oh, have you got a family? Have you got children? It's let's not go there, because you don't know what that person's story is. They might be trying, they might have, sadly lost a child. They might be struggling with idea. You don't know what their story is. So best to just
So I think obviously to reverse engineer the question is, for me, don't ask those questions, because actually it's none of my goddamn business. And although I was being polite and nice, trying to be conversational, let's think about asking it,
those questions,
or not even going down that route. It's none of my business about your personal family life. It's more about you as opposed to what your trajectory in life is.
I think it's a bit similar to, we've kind of trained ourselves out of the question, out of that kind of, oh, so where are you from? Because we're like, actually, that feels othering to people in other ways. It's like we don't ask that question anymore, because firstly, it's none of our business, and secondly, it's littered with lots of problematic things.
Talk me through, Marnie, your thought process on having kids, and if I can, because obviously we're talking openly, and I think it will be interesting for you to share your story, your thought process, your feelings, your emotions, because if somebody does hear this, they really may feel connected with what you're saying.
I started on a very conventional path, and then I was engaged in my early 20s, split up with my boyfriend, my fiance. I ran away to sea, and then from there my life kind of like took a different turn. I came out in my early 20s, and at that time it was quite rare in the early 90s for women who were with women to have children. It was not the norm as it is now. It's quite common. It's quite usual for lesbian couples to have children, but when I first came out, that was not the norm. The only lesbian mothers I knew really in the main were women who had a family and then come out.
Okay.
There was, and then the only way to really get pregnant was to have someone who was going to help you out,
Like a surrogacy, yeah.
like even surrogacy, but someone who's going to come round and then you would like self inseminate, not to
Okay,
put it to,
understood.
you
Yeah.
know, that was the
Yeah,
only way.
yeah.
Like I would say, a Marmite jar and a turkey baster. That was the way that most of it happened in those days. Try and get that visual picture out of you. And so I never really considered it when I was always in relationships with women who either didn't want children or had children. I'd had relationships with a couple of women who had previous relationships where their girlfriend had a child and they didn't want to do it again, or it was complicated. So I kind of always thought, oh, at some point it's going to happen. I never consciously made the choice not to have children, and I just always kind of thought, oh, it will happen at some point. And actually, I remember I must have been just very in my early 40s. My mum died when I was 42, so it must have been just before she died. We had a conversation and about children. It was pretty much the only conversation that we had, and about it. And I said maybe I should have had a baby with my fiance and then split up with him. Do you know what I mean? And they've gone through, like, had a child and then gone off and, you know, split up with him and gone with a woman or whatever. But obviously that wasn't, I was kind of like half joking. And she was like, well, it's not too late. You still can have a child. And I was like, well, I'm single, Mum. She's like, I'll help you look after it. I was like, Mum, you can barely get up the stairs. She's like, I'll manage. Just like, yeah, she was like, wanted me, you know.
She wanted to be a grandma.
Of course she did.
Wanted to be a
But that's the
grandma.
other thing, talking about the conversations about, oh, what do you come up against? One of the things that gets levelled is like, well, aren't you selfish not giving your parents grandchildren? Like, that's something that non-mothers get told, like literally told to their face, like, oh, you're very selfish not giving your parents grandchildren. It's like, but so I always thought it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then the last egg dropped, and I was like, well, this is. And then I met my
So did
husband.
you ever try?
Never. No, I always felt like I would need to be in a relationship. I never felt. They say it takes a village, right, to raise a child, and I never felt. And I know there are a lot of women that do have a child, consciously have a child on their own as a lone parent. I never felt the strength to do that. I never felt so desirous. I didn't like the practicalities never, like the need and desire for me never outweighed the practicalities of, like, I would think, oh my God, imagine you're lying in bed and you're so too ill to get up and you've got to look after your child. That was always, now it happens and there are plenty of women, amazing women raising children on their own, but I didn't feel it felt like a different weight, a different vibe to me than going into it on your own consciously. I never felt like I was able to do that.
Before I had my daughter, and I've only ever given birth to one child.
Yeah.
I was never sure if I wanted children. I just wasn't sure because I was scared that I was not going to be maternal.
Right.
That was my fear. I'm petrified I'm not going to feel maternal. And what if this baby comes along and I'm not? And sometimes I think my parents have criticised me for not being as caring and warm as possibly I should have been. You know, I was quite a strict parent with the kids growing up, and
can't win,
you
Lisa,
know,
honestly.
but I did have that thought in my head as to whether or not I really wanted to have a child. But when I did have her, you know, she did change my life. I had my little girl with me, and she got me through my first I think she spurred me and drove me to split up with my first husband because I
Wow.
knew that it wasn't right and I wanted to protect her. So I did have those maternal instincts. However, I think there are a lot of women who don't. And I think it's not the wrong way to that's your general
But that's the
feeling.
thing.
It's the
That's your
thing that,
feeling.
I mean, I have spoken to a lot of women off the record when I've been having these conversations who said, I never really wanted children, but I felt obliged to have a child. Not that they don't love their child, but that they were like, you know what, if I'd have gone down another road, and I love my children, but I could have just as easily not had them if life had taken a different turn. I spoke to one woman who was like, I honestly didn't really, I was very ambivalent. I was very like, I don't know if I want to have children. And then I felt like I ought to have them, and then went down this massive IVF route because she couldn't conceive naturally, and went through like hell trying to have a child. Eventually had a child and loves her, but was like, I don't know if I would have gone, if I would go through that again if I had the choice, if I didn't feel obliged, which is another thing. Another reason to talk about it, because why should you have a child just because you feel obliged? And there are many women out there who really struggle with motherhood and really struggle, and that's another thing that's why I said just now women can't win, because if you don't have a child, you're wrong for not having a child. If you have a child and you don't feel maternal, you're wrong. If you have a child and you go out to work, you're wrong. If you have a child and you don't go out to work, you're wrong, or you're showing the wrong signals. That it's like we're women, we can't win.
No.
We literally can't win. So my goal in life, my mission, is to understand women and to see woman as an autonomous being, regardless of what's happened or hasn't happened in their womb. The latest research shows that 1 in 4 women will not be mothers. 1 in 4. That's a quarter of the population of women. And if you look at any commercial, you look at any aspect of life, and women who are not mums are not featured in that in any way, shape or form. We are not part of the whole society story, because it's always woman equals mother.
If I did meet somebody and I was curious, because I'm not curious about the fact that they haven't got a child, I'm more curious, and this is where I come in as a coach. How would I approach that conversation so that I wouldn't hurt someone's feelings?
I think that to ask open-ended questions like we were talking about before, and then if the conversation did turn around to it, then you could, but to steer the conversation to that is quite a minefield, because I know until I started talking openly about it, I never really had these conversations, and I'm a woman who isn't a mum. So to open those conversations is quite a difficult balancing act to do that.
Because I think the other person, it's like addressing the elephant in the room. So I've met business women who are top of their game, leaders, retiring now, and I know that they've said they don't have children. You know, I don't have a family. I love my nieces and nephews.
See, and that's the other thing, is like, it has to be we feel the need to justify. I was listening to one of your previous podcasts where in the let them theory, when it's like, when we say no, we have to justify it. So it's the same with women who aren't mums. Do you have children? No.
Yes, because you don't justify the yes.
Oh, I love nieces and nephews. Oh, I couldn't have children. Oh, it's like you have to, like you have to justify your reasons for coming to that non-motherhood status. And that's not even to talk about the fact that there is no way to talk about a woman who doesn't have children that is not in the negative. There is no word for a woman who isn't a mum that doesn't include non, lack, missing, non, not, less.
Well, I'm kind of the way that I coach, a lot of it is about the psychology of positivity. And I was thinking before this interview, what are the upsides of not having kids? And you mentioned the school holidays. And I thought, you know, now my kids are older, I can understand that. Well, I don't need childcare. I'm financially better off. I can pick up my stuff, a suitcase, and I could piss off and go traveling whenever I want. I financially have, as I said, more money. There must be other upsides. So why do we think about it in a negative way? Let's try and reframe that and maybe open up the conversation and say, if someone says they don't have kids, oh my God, it must be incredible for you. You can go traveling whenever you want. How amazing is that? And you've got all this life to lead and you don't have any strings attached. You don't have the pressures. You don't have the worries. And you can understand a family situation without being in that situation.
Family, so we understand what it's like to be in a family, but having that's not to say that you don't have a family just because you don't have an immediate family, like offspring family. There's still other ways to have, and you have a lot more freedom, you have a lot more openness, you can create things more spontaneously. You don't have the pull of needing to behave in a certain way or to live your life in a certain way because you want to leave a legacy for your children. And that's a very important legacy, is a very big word that is I've been coming up against. I was thinking about women who aren't mums, and actually non-parents is, oh, what's your legacy, what are you leaving? Because you can pop out a child and never see it again, but somehow you've fulfilled your purpose on earth because you've had a child. But when you don't have children, it's like, well, what you were saying before, or what's your purpose in life is to have a child. If you haven't had a child, what is your legacy? What is your purpose? What is your mission? And you have more of a drive to leave that mission for the world when you haven't fulfilled your biological purpose. So it's quite I find a lot of women who aren't mums are very driven in that way to leave a legacy, to have something that they can give back in other ways.
And I think what we need to do is, as you said, we need to think of ourselves as women, not as mums, not as any other label than a woman who has a purpose in life, and finding your purpose other than having children. And I think maybe I've been quite good at doing that, in terms of the fact that I also, me and my husband chose not to have a child together. My second husband, Adam, who I'm with, because we felt that it was important to make sure that our family was okay. So I didn't feel that I had this additional purpose of having a child with him, because that would then frame us being together as a couple. And we actually look back, and he said to me last night, if we'd had a kid, how old would our child have been right now? And I said 11. And he went, oh my God, I couldn't have done that. And we were like, I went, absolutely. We're living our best life now because we chose not to have a child together.
Because somehow you've got to validate your relationship by having a child that's like biologically both of yours, which is ridiculous as well.
100%. And I think that is important. So I've sat on both sides of the fence of, you know, my purpose in life is, I was with my first husband, so if I have a child, the marriage is going to be okay. Well, it wasn't. So it actually didn't, it didn't solve anything. We've had a child and it's all going to be okay. Right, exactly. And then I went into the next marriage and obviously thought, no, this is not right for our family setting. And we are in a much better, I feel, present moment with each other,
Yeah.
not having had a child together.
And great for your existing children not to feel like they were going to be
Yeah, almost like second best, and we're going to concentrate
oh,
on
it's us
them.
now.
Yeah. And also that I look at our kids and having children in a very different way. My purpose in life, especially now, is to create a community where we can bring conversations like this into the fold, get it out there into the world. And it's not about being a mum. It honestly is not about being a mum, and maybe that's always the way I've thought. I love my child. I'll be there for her. I'll nurture her, but she's driven me, but she, and Sky, forgive me for saying this, is not the be all and end all of me living my life. I want to show her the purpose of life and the purpose of being a woman,
Yeah.
not just a mum, of being a woman and having qualities and having values and morals and getting out there into the world. It's not your purpose in this world to be a mum. It's to be a woman and a strong woman.
Yeah, absolutely. I applaud that. I really do, because it's about exactly that. It's like a woman is an autonomous being in her own right, and you're not only mum.
Yeah.
You're not only, one of the phrases which I wish we could just ban from is like, as a mother, you don't know how awful that sounds. I mean, when you see it a lot in debates, and you see it on the television, people talking all the time, and as a mother, it's like, why do you think that being a mother somehow means that you have more of an understanding of what pain means?
It should be as a woman.
Yes, exactly.
As a woman,
Yeah.
I'd like to know what conversations are you having as a child-free woman that I'm not having?
There's lots of conversations that you can have that don't revolve around children and offspring and families, because also not all people have families. That's another thing. A couple of weeks ago, so as well as doing my group program, I also run a salon. So every other week I get together, and it's just a free Zoom call that we have, and we just get together and chat about things that are important to us as not being a mum, and just being in a conversation. There's no coaching that goes on. It's just
Chit chat.
It's just a social. And in that we talk about all things that are normal conversations, but just that don't have children, and in an environment where you're not waiting for that question to drop, or waiting for somebody else to start talking about their children and for you to zone out. So all of the conversations about life in general, holidays, travel, what you love to do, what lights you up. Everybody gets lit up by something, and not all of them about talking about their children, because some people don't want to talk about their children as well.
we everyone used to always ask me, how are the kids, and Adam and I would be like, oh really, that question's coming.
Exactly.
Because
They're
our
bad
kids
enough
were
for you.
struggling, and we didn't want, everyone else is doing well and it's all
So they say.
roses and
So
all
they
this
say.
And we would be like, I mean, I can't repeat what he used to say, but he used to sort of name them as like, you name the dwarves. It was like the three kids had different kind of names to describe how we were feeling about them at that particular time. So yeah, because having kids is bloody hard.
Yeah. But also, you don't, the same as I don't want you. Be honest, how interested are you in other people's children?
Not really.
There you are. That's how much I'm interested in other people's children. The same.
Yeah.
There's nothing more dull than other people's children.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to talk. And the reason that anybody says, so have you got children, is just so they can talk about their children.
Yeah, we know.
It's not really, like, they don't really care about if you have children. And to be honest with you, sometimes, I'm going to admit this now, if it's someone that I meet in a social situation where I'm never going to meet them again, for example, I used to do a lot of tour guiding. And at the end of the tour, particularly if it's a private tour, we'd be chit-chatting as we're going back to wherever we're finishing the tour. And it would be the mum, always the mum, that as we're walking along, so have you got kids? And I'm not going to start a whole, like, my uterus, my business. I'm not going to start. So I just go, yeah, at university now, they're doing really well. It's like, I just make them up because it's just easier.
See, that's so sad.
I know.
That's so sad that you actually have to lie just to stop the conversation.
Yeah, because I'm not going to have a whole conversation with you about how I don't have children and have the, like, oh, you don't have children, like the head bob, like the kind of, you're either going to feel sorry for me or you're going to think there's something wrong with me, or there's some kind of like weirdness that's going to come into that no answer. There's going to be some weirdness. So I'm never going to see you again. You're only really asking me out of politeness because you want to talk about your children, or there's something. Like, it's easy to just go, oh yeah, but they're grown up now. I just like forget. It's just not worth going there. So I do make up children. I have made up children in the past, but I don't care. It's not anything. It's just like, oh, it's just easier. Like, what am I going to say? They don't want to know your life story. They just want to talk about their own children.
Are you a midlife woman who doesn't have any children and you feel a little bit lost and alone? Why not get in touch with Marnie? Marnie creates a whole group environment and a community for women just like you who feels lost and alone. So get in touch with Marnie. Her details will be in the show notes. So you've kind of taken us through a little bit of journey about, your relationships, having a conversation with your mum. At the point where you realise that kids was not going to be on the agenda, like, what did you feel like?
I'm going to caveat this with, it's hard to separate how I felt about it from being perimenopausal and the upset of the hormones and how that makes everybody feel. But there was a definite grief. Like, I had a very difficult menopause, and I do attribute some of that to working through the feelings, although I also have to caveat with, I went through the menopause in the pandemic and having lost my dad right at the beginning of the pandemic. So all of those things are quite hard to unpick, but there was a grieving process that did take, I struggled, like I have had a very difficult menopause where I did basically spend a lot of it in tears and on the floor, kind of emotionally on the floor. It's hard to separate that from the menopause, but I think a lot of it was grieving for the life that never was, grieving for the expectation when you're lying on your childhood bed, staring up at the ceiling, thinking what your life is going to be like, and then coming to the end of your fertile years and going, oh, this is not the life I thought I was going to have. There's a grief that happens. There's a process that happens where you have to accept that it isn't the life that you were going to have, because up until that point you always think there's still time, and not even that it was I said earlier on that it was never really a massive pull. I think if I'd have had the drive that I know some of my friends have had, where they have gone down the route of, I literally can't live with the idea of not having children, I'm going to have to go and do this myself. I never felt that strong, but still it was a massive grieving process. And I think it did take me a long time to understand how I felt about it.
I never really thought about it like that, because when you go through the menopause, you think, oh, I don't have to have periods anymore now.
Yeah.
Now I can't get pregnant. That's great. You know, I can
Yeah.
have sex and not worry about it.
Yeah.
Never thought of it as, well, this is the end of my
Yeah.
like, there's going to be no possibility now.
No.
So therefore
No.
it's like a you know,
Yeah.
cemented.
The upside is something I read a lot. I did a lot of research and reading a lot about not how you live in the world, not being a mum and things like that. And there's something that's very interesting, which is there's a reason why men are fertile and pretty much until the day they die. Women are only fertile up until their 50s, like late 40s, early 50s, but then they live another 30 years. There's a reason for that. We have stuff to give, we have life to live, we have things to do, we've got stuff to do. And whether you've used that period of fertility to grow a child or not, you've still grown a life, and you've still got, at the end of your fertile years, you still have a lot of life to give and a lot of stuff, a lot of gifts that you've accumulated. So there's a reason that we live longer than men, even though we stop having this fertility like 30 years before that. Like, we've still got stuff to do.
You've given me a real aha moment, honestly, because it makes sense now that turning 50, going through a menopause, coming out the other side, you suddenly feel, a lot of women now it's talking about, we feel alive again.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yes.
So actually, this is our purpose.
Yeah.
To really grab hold of it. And again, I think it just emphasizes the point of, we are women. We're not here to produce children, but we have an existence in this world, and we have a purpose other than just to give birth to children and just to have families.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
it's
coming on
absolute
Real
pleasure.
Women's
Thank you
Stories.
It's absolutely lovely.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Sisters, love and in a world.